How did China's national sport improve diplomatic relations with the United States of America, US, sparking what is now known as Ping Pong Diplomacy? In 1950, Chairman Mao declared ping pong to be China's national sport. Despite this, China had not attended a major international sporting event since the revolution, and nearly didn't attend the 31st World Table Tennis Championships in Japan. They decided to attend last minute, speculating it could be a good catalyst for changing how the world perceived the PRC. The People's Daily reported on the unseemingly but politically charged phrase, "friendship first, competition second." This became the slogan for the Chinese team throughout the tournament. Chairman Mao and President Nixon could see mutual benefit in bringing their countries together, but neither of them could afford to be seen actively seeking out collaboration. Nixon worried about losing support from the extreme right-wing voters, and Mao had his worries about the extreme left. Both Chairman Mao and President Nixon were in difficult political climates. Mao's relationship with the USSR was in decline, and threats of nuclear war were becoming imminent. While Nixon, in the lead-up to elections, had not resolved America's involvement in the Vietnam War, which was increasingly unpopular with the public. One incident, credited with initiating ping pong diplomacy, occurred on the 4th of April while in Japan. A 19-year-old hippie, Glenn Cowan of the US team, found himself on the Chinese team's bus. He was befriended by Zhuang Zedong, the Chinese world champion. At the end of the bus trip, Zedong gifted Cowan an embroidered scarf. The next day, Glenn returned the gesture by giving Zhuang the Beatles t-shirt reading "Let It Be." While not uncharacteristic of Mr. Cowan to be late and miss buses, it is speculated that he was invited by the Chinese team onto the bus, perhaps setting the wheels in motion for soft diplomacy. The exchange caught the eye of Chairman Mao, who said Zhuang Zedong is not just a good table tennis player, acknowledging he is a good diplomat as well. Graham Steenhoven, the president of the US Table Tennis Association, is also credited with playing a part in the invitation to tour China. After expressing to the Chinese table tennis president how much the American team admired the skill of the Chinese and how the US team could benefit from spending some time with the Chinese team. While on tour in China, the US team were treated like celebrities, attending banquets and sightseeing across the country, including a trip to the Great Wall of China. There were instances of communism shining through, though, as one player recalls attending an opera that was filled with communist agenda and reminded the audience how terrible the nationalists were. There was propaganda in the streets, "Down with the Yankee oppressors and their running dogs," which had been covered over by a Welcome Team America sign. Throughout the tour, the team began to realize what a big deal their trip was, especially from the media attention they received. On their return home to the US, they continued to be treated like celebrities. After their tour of China, Foreign Minister Henry Kissinger began talks with China and made a secret visit to the PRC from the 9th to the 11th of July 1971, following the table tennis players' successful tour. The tour, having been so well received by the people of China and the US public, made it the perfect political opportunity to embrace communications, without causing significant tension to either nation's already difficult political climates. On the 11th of July, President Nixon announced he would be visiting China to normalize relations between the two countries. Nixon arrived in China on the 21st of February 1972, where he and Chairman Mao began talks to bring the nations together for mutual gains. The most notable success of ping pong diplomacy came with the negotiation of the Shanghai Communique during Nixon's 1972 visit. This allowed the PRC and the US to strengthen bilateral associations, which included non-interference clauses regarding the internal affairs of either country. One of the biggest impacts of ping pong diplomacy was on Taiwan, which at the time was significant, as the US had a military base in Taiwan. China was regarded by the Taiwanese as the enemy and relied on backing from the US. In the Shanghai Communique, the US acknowledged Taiwan to be under Chinese rule and by 1979 had withdrawn all its military support from Taiwan. The success and gravity of the table tennis tour back in 1971 is celebrated today with events held annually to remember the occasion. In 2009 in Beijing, the original PRC team met with the US team to have a friendly game, some 30 years after their sportsmanship and friendship stitched the opposing nations back together. The players to this day are surprised at what an effect their friendship had on the beginning of communications for diplomatic negotiation.